Hi guys, welcome to the Revolution Beauty channel. My name is Shannon of Shannon Shortcake Beauty and I'm so happy to be here. We're here to talk about two new palettes that Revolution are dropping. These are the Shook palettes. Oh my goodness, you guys. I am wearing both the eyeshadow palette and the highlighter palette on my face right now, and I can tell you already, it's true. I'm shook. I'm shook. So let's get into looking at these. We are going to swatch them, talk about them, and also there will be a tutorial at the end of this video on this look right here. All right, let's get into it. All right, so here is the eyeshadow palette right here. It comes in this really cool tin packaging that pops open. I just love the dimension on it. And of course, I love that it is rose gold and black, all about it. As you can see, there's a giant mirror in here, which is great. And then here are these shades. Oh my goodness, you guys. These are so pigmented, so blendable. I am seriously in love. I really love that they created the transition shades all along the top, and then there's all of the other shadows down at the bottom, because I feel like I always go through these type of shades first in any palette that I've ever had, because I always like to highlight my brow bone with a cream matte shade, and then usually all of these colors are shades that I would use for my transition. This one I would probably use for my lid too, which is just beautiful, but I feel like they just did such a good job creating color story and the shades in this palette. I do have to tell you guys that both of these palettes are cruelty-free and vegan, which is amazing. So I swear when I was using this, I barely even tapped my brush into the color. You will see this in the tutorial, and it was just so pigmented. I am honestly blown away at the amount of pigmentation I was able to get by such a tiny amount of product. Even though these are really tiny pans, I feel like this palette will last you for so long. And again, because you have those extra shades at the top, I feel like it's just such a good palette. Okay, let's get into some swatches. I'm going to insert swatches and also swatch a few for you live because I want you to be able to really see. Like if I take this, barely even touched it. Look at how pigmented that is. Even Compliment, this peachy shade up here, had quite a bit of pigmentation, and I was really surprised at how quickly I got my transition shade on. Look at how pigmented those quick swatches are. Shade right here. Oh my goodness. So pretty. I wish that I had used it on my eyes. I just could not decide. There were too many shades in here that I was just so anxious to try. Ooh, so pretty. I just think it's funny that they're called Shook. I'm trying to remember the first time I ever used the word shook. I think the first time I ever used it and actually like really genuinely meant it was when the Conceal and Define concealer dropped and I used it for the first time. And I remember in that video, I was just like, girl, I'm shook. I'm shook. If you guys don't know what shook means, there is a Urban Dictionary definition that I have for you. So the Urban Dictionary definition of shook is shocked or surprised AF. Can't believe what you're seeing. Like, girl, my highlighter, I'm shook. Which when I put on this highlighter, I was like, so beautiful. So beautiful. Okay, so I swatched Winter and Adored, and they are so beautiful. So pretty. All right, so I'm going to insert full swatches while we talk about this palette. I just feel like this is such a good everyday palette. You have so many nice pops of color. There's a lot of warm tones. There are some cool tones in here too, but I just feel like everything you need for an everyday palette is in here. You have your transition shades, you have your matte brow bone shades, you have a dark black, you have glitters, you have shimmers, you've got it. You've got truly amazing, and I just love that there are so many color options in one palette. I'm seriously, I am shook by the formula of these shadows. That pigmentation, like I cannot get over it. Cannot get over it. This is just such a beautiful palette. They did so good. You've got some reds, you've got pinks, you've got your dusty shades down here. You've got every neutral that you could possibly need. It's just, it's a good palette. It's a good palette. I'm shook. Next, we're going to look at the Shook highlighter palette. Again, it's in that same awesome tin packaging with the dimension on the top. And here are all of the shades. This also comes with a big mirror, which is amazing. What I really love, besides the amazing highlights that I'm legit shook by when I put them on, is I do want to talk about the biggest thing I love about this palette. Not only does this palette come with a white shade, which makes it extremely easy for me to use, as I am super fair, but there are also deeper shades. What's great about a palette like this with such a variety is you can mix the white shade with the other shades to lighten them to your skin tone, and you can use the deeper shade to deepen them if you are deeper in skin tone. So I just think that's such a cool thing with a palette like this, because I know that some people will see a palette like this and think, oh, I can only use 1 or 2 shades in there. But no, you can use almost every shade in there as long as you mix your shades, and you can mix them to create your own individual highlight shade. So the one that I'm wearing today are these two right here. But let's get into some swatches. They are so pretty. That's after swatching them on my hand. There's still that much pigment. That peachy champagne-y one. Oh, it's so pretty. So here are some swatches of those guys. Look at that reflection. And of course, if you want to amp it up, you can always wet your brush with a setting spray. I wet my brush with the Hyaluronic Fix when I went in a second time during the tutorial because I wanted to see how much I could amp it up, and it worked great. So you can always make it more intense. You can use just a little bit to make it less intense. Whatever it is, you can make this palette fit you. But if you love an intense highlight like I do, you are going to be shook. All right, love. So I want to know down below how you guys would rate these palettes on a 0 to shook scale. Would you say that you're kind of shook? You're super shook? Are you a 0 shook? Are you a 10 shook? I'm going to have to say I'm a 10 shook. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed these quick swatches and little talk. Now let's get into the tutorial. All right, loves, we are going to start with the Shook highlighter palette. As you can see, there is a mirror in here, and here are all of the shades. I think the ones I'm gonna go for, I'm gonna mix this white one with this kind of light champagne-y shade. Oh, girl. Ooh, girl. That's not even, the brush isn't even wet or anything. Oh my goodness, you guys. That is beautiful. I'm shook. I just love a really like pop-in highlight. I'm just going to spritz my brush with the Hyaluronic Fix and see what that does to these highlights, just because they're already so intense, but why not? Why not? I'm just going to go back into those same two. Whoo! Glowing, glowing. I love it. Yes. Yes, 100% approved. I'm gonna go ahead and bake a little bit down here just to carve out my contour. I'm gonna use the translucent powder and the bake and finish brush. I am just going to take the little cap and put some in there. And I don't heavily bake personally because my skin on the outside of my face is a little bit dry. So I just like to go over it with like a decent amount of powder just so you can just see it. And then I go ahead and kind of blend it out with the other side. That way it just, you can see the difference. It kind of cleaned it up and brought it up a little bit. And just buff it away. So we are ready for eyes. You guys, I am so excited to get into this palette. There's so many fun shades. I don't even know where to start. First, we're going to use the new Prime and Lock and prime our eyelids. We're going to start with Compliment, this shade right here. Oh, girl! That was way more pigmented than I thought it was going to be. We're just going to buff that into our crease as our transition shade. We're going to apply Fresh to the brow bone. Next, we are going to take Lust. Oh my goodness, these are so pigmented. Like, I feel like I'm barely even tapping them in, and it's just like, look at that pigment. All right, we're going to focus this mostly on the outer corner and blend inwards of our crease. So I'm just going to go for it. You'll see what I'm doing. Okay. Oh, okay. She is pigmented. We're going to go back in first with Compliment and then with Lust on the lower lash line. So let's start with Compliment. And I'm just going to buff it back and forth. Back with Lust. Next, we are going to go in with Vibe, which is this beautiful burgundy right here. And I'm just going to kind of tap it out here on the outer corner, concentrating most of the color on my outer V, and then kind of buff it in. Just kind of tapping it at first and then blending. You can just see the difference that makes. Look at the difference in depth and dimension. So pretty. These are blending so incredibly easy, so pigmented. So far, zero fallout. I'm going to say it time and time again, but I'm understanding why they called this palette the Shook palette. Like, I'm shook. I'm shook, girl. Okay, we're going to go back in with Vibe again and just apply that to the lower lash line on the outer corner. Just right out here. What I'm going to do to clean up that line is I'm just going to take a little more of the translucent powder, and I'm just going to take a flat brush and just kind of put it right along the edge. I'm gonna let that bake for a minute and that will help sharpen that line. We are gonna try the new Cut Crease canvas. This one is in Illustrate. It's the fair shade. So this is what the brush looks like. It's so cool because the applicator is actually a flat brush, just like you would use when doing a cut crease. So what I'm gonna do is I just kind of tap it along my lash line. I know I'm getting at my lashes, that's just fine. And then I look up. So by doing this, it creates the line for me to fill in for my cut crease. All right, we are going to use Valentine and just pack that on. What I'm really liking about these is that the cut crease canvas does not dry as fast as concealer normally does. So I had a minute to decide what shade to use and it was still tacky when I put the shade on, which is going to create a much smoother foiled lid. I just feel like that helps the color be much more pigmented when it's applied to the wet cut crease base. I think I want to add a little bit of Repost, this kind of peachy shade down here. And I'm just going to add that in between right here on the edge to blend. All right, loves, we are going to do a wing and I am going to use the Renaissance Flick liner. All right, we are going to pop on some mascara. I'm going to use the Mascara Revolution. This is my absolute favorite. All right, you guys, I'm going to complete the rest of this look and I will be right back. All right, you guys, so I went ahead and applied my lip. I used the lip liner in Vow. The lipstick in Chauffeur, this is my absolute favorite. This is the matte version. And then I went in with the I Heart Revolution I Heart Chocolate Lip Gloss in Salted Caramel. It smells so good, so good. And then I just went back into the Shook highlighter palette and took just the white shade and just applied it right here on my inner corner just to have a little bit of a pop. Let's add a little more. All right, loves, so this is the completed look. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Revolution channel. Definitely check out these palettes. I am completely shook. They are so good. This eyeshadow palette, the pigment, everything, and this highlighter palette, I am just in love. So again, I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Definitely check out these palettes, and thank you so much for being here. Bye.